There is a story you think you know, but you do not. Not the real one. The real Aladdin is not a street rat who finds a genie and wins a princess. He is a lazy boy who gets trapped in a cave by a fake uncle and accidentally discovers a lamp that changes his life in ways he never expected. Let the city of Baghdad wrap itself around you. Let the dust of the marketplace and the heat of the desert carry you back to a time when magic was real and dangerous. And let us begin at the beginning with a boy who did not know he was about to become the most interesting man in the world. Chapter 1. The Lazy Boy. In the city where this story begins, there lived a boy named Aladdin, and if you had met him, you would not have been impressed. He was the kind of boy who could sleep through a donkey stampede, who would rather eat one flatbread a day than lift a finger to earn two. His mother ran a small sewing shop out of their home, and every thread she stitched was a thread his stomach depended on. But Aladdin didn't see it that way. He spent his days in the marketplace. Not working, just watching. He learned the rhythms of the merchants, the best spots to sit without getting shooed away, and exactly which baker would toss him a broken piece of bread at the end of the day. The neighborhood women would click their tongues when they saw him. Such a waste, they'd say. His father was a good man. His father had been a tailor, a real craftsman. And this boy couldn't even thread a needle. What nobody knew was that Aladdin was not stupid. He was waiting. He couldn't explain it to anyone, because he didn't fully understand it himself. But there was a part of him that knew the sewing shop was not his fate. He was lazy, yes, but he was also restless. And in a city like this one, a sprawling, chaotic, impossibly old city, restlessness could lead you somewhere interesting, or it could get you killed. Either way, it was better than sitting at a sewing table for 40 years. Chapter 2. The Stranger from Africa. Far away from this city, across a sea, and then a desert, and then another sea, there was a man who had spent his whole life studying dark magic. He was a magician from Morocco, and he was not the kind of magician who performed tricks at weddings. He knew the language of the jinn. He could read maps drawn in sand and fire, and he had spent 20 years following a thread of whispers about a lamp. Not just any lamp. A lamp that held a genie so powerful that the very earth had been shaped around it. The problem was, the lamp was hidden, and not just behind a locked door or under a mountain. It was hidden inside a cave that would only open for one specific person. A boy, a poor boy from a distant city. The magician had to find this boy, earn his trust, and send him into the cave to retrieve the lamp. Then he would kill the boy and take the lamp for himself. Simple, clean, and brutal. So the magician packed his bags and traveled. The journey took months. He crossed deserts where the sand burned through his shoes. He passed through cities where the language changed every 100 kilometers. When he finally reached Aladdin's city, he did not walk through the gates like a tired traveler. He walked through like a merchant prince. He wore fine silk robes, a turban with a jewel in it, and a smile that looked like kindness but was really impatience. Chapter 3. The Long-Lost Uncle. The magician found Aladdin exactly where you'd expect him, sitting in the shade of a market stall, watching a man sell figs. He studied the boy for a full day before approaching. He watched him beg, watched him dodge a merchant's broom, watched him eat stolen grapes with no shame at all. Perfect, the magician thought. This boy is nobody. This boy is nothing. This boy is exactly what I need. He approached Aladdin with open arms and tears in his eyes. "My boy," he said, "Do you not recognize me? I am your uncle, your father's brother. I left this city before you were born, and I have finally returned." The magician pulled a handful of gold coins from his pocket and pressed them into Aladdin's hand. "Go," he said. "Tell your mother her brother-in-law has come home." Aladdin ran home faster than he had ever run in his life. His mother did not believe him at first. She had never heard of a brother. Her husband had died poor and bitter, and no rich brother had ever appeared. But the gold was real, and when the magician arrived at their door that evening, carrying baskets of food and gifts, her resistance melted. She wept, she fed him, she called him brother. And Aladdin sat in the corner, eating lamb he had not earned, feeling for the first time in his life like maybe he was not cursed after all. Chapter 4. The Cave of Wonders. A few days passed. The magician took Aladdin on walks around the city, buying him sweets and showing him off like a prized nephew. Aladdin's mother watched from her sewing table with tears of gratitude in her eyes. Finally, the magician said it was time for a real adventure, a day trip out of the city. Just the two of them, man to man, they left before sunrise. The magician led Aladdin through narrow alleyways and out the eastern gate, past farms and orchards, into the dry hills beyond. Aladdin had never walked this far in his life. His feet blistered, but the magician kept going, his long robes brushing the dust, his eyes fixed on a point Aladdin could not see. After hours of walking, they reached a valley where nothing grew. The ground was cracked like old pottery. The magician stopped. He pulled a small pouch from his belt and sprinkled powder into a circle around them. Then he began to speak. The words were not Arabic. They were not any language Aladdin had ever heard. The ground trembled, a crack split the earth, wider and wider, until a large flat stone rose up from beneath the sand. The magician turned to Aladdin with sweat on his forehead and said, "Under this stone is everything you could ever want. Go down, bring me the lamp you find there. Touch nothing else. And whatever you do, do not stop for treasure." Chapter 5. The Trap. Aladdin did what he was told. He lifted the stone and found stairs leading down into darkness. He climbed down, his heart pounding so loud he was sure the magician could hear it. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber, and there, hanging from the ceiling, were lamps. Dozens of them, simple, identical, dusty. The treasure was everywhere. Gold coins, jewel-encrusted goblets, piles of silk, chests overflowing with uncut gemstones. But Aladdin barely saw it. He filled his pockets anyway. Not because he was greedy, but because he could not help it. He had been poor his whole life. Gold was real to him in a way that magic was not. He shoved handfuls of jewels into his sleeves, his belt, even his shoes. Somewhere in the back of the chamber, half hidden behind a stack of treasure, he found the lamp the magician wanted. It was old, tarnished, ugly. He tucked it into his shirt and headed back up. But when he reached the top of the stairs, the magician's face had changed. No more uncle warmth, no more kind eyes. "Give me the lamp," he said. Aladdin hesitated. He did not trust this man any more. The lamp was in his shirt. The treasures were in his pockets. And something in his gut told him this lamp was worth more than everything else combined. "I can't reach it," Aladdin lied. "Pull me up first." The magician's face twisted. He screamed a word of power, and the stone slab slammed shut. Aladdin was alone in the dark. Chapter 6. The Ring and the Escape. It is one thing to be brave in daylight. It is another thing entirely to sit in complete darkness, buried alive, with no way out and no one coming to save you. Aladdin sat against the stone and waited to die. He thought about his mother. He thought about the stolen grapes. He thought about how stupid he had been to trust a stranger who appeared out of nowhere with gold and kind words. In his grief, he clasped his hands together to pray, and his fingers brushed the ring the magician had given him on their first meeting. The magician had called it a gift of protection. A lie, like everything else, but when Aladdin rubbed the ring in the darkness, something shifted. A shape emerged from the air beside him. Not a man, not smoke, something in between. A jinni, a lesser one, bound to the ring, not the lamp. It spoke. "I am here. What do you wish?" Aladdin could barely form the words. "Get me out," he said. The jinni nodded, and in the space of a breath, Aladdin was standing on the surface again, the night air cool against his face, the city lights flickering in the distance. The magician was gone, the cave was sealed, but Aladdin was alive, with a lamp in his shirt, a ring on his finger, and no idea what either of them could really do. Chapter 7. The Jinni and the Princess. Aladdin's mother picked up the lamp to clean it, and the room filled with fire and sand. A voice that was not quite a voice said, "I am the jinni of the lamp. What is your command?" His mother fainted. Aladdin sat very still, and in that moment he understood why the magician had been willing to kill for this thing. The first wishes were small: soup, new clothes, gold to pay debts. Aladdin was careful. He had seen what happened when you trusted magic too fast. But one morning he walked through the market in clean robes, and the royal procession passed by. A breeze lifted the curtain of the princess's litter. Aladdin saw her face, and everything changed. He asked the jinni for a gift the sultan could not refuse. A tray of pure gold inlaid with rubies and emeralds, carrying 100 perfect diamonds. His mother carried it to the palace, terrified. The sultan stared at the tray for a long time. Then he said, "Bring me 40 trays of gold carried by 40 slaves, and we can talk." Chapter 8. The Impossible Tasks. The next morning 40 slaves marched through the city gates. Each carried a tray of gold and jewels. Each wore silk. The city stopped to watch, but the sultan was not done. "Build me a palace," he said, "next to mine, better than mine. Build it overnight." By sunrise, the palace stood beside the sultan's like a younger brother trying to show off. White marble, alabaster walls, windows framed in gold, a fountain that ran with liquid mercury instead of water. The sultan stared at it from his balcony for a long, quiet minute. Then he said yes. The wedding was held the next day. Aladdin married Princess Badrol Budur in a ceremony the city would talk about for years. She had no idea that 3 months ago he had been sleeping in a room with a dirt floor. But she knew she was marrying someone interesting. And in royal marriages, that is about as good as it gets. Chapter 9. The Magician Returns. Far away, the Moroccan magician consulted his oracles. The smoke told him something he did not want to hear. The boy was alive, rich, married to a princess, living in a palace built by the lamp that was supposed to be his. The magician packed his bags and travelled back across the sea, this time wearing rags instead of silk. Aladdin was away hunting for 3 days. The magician bought a basket of shiny new lamps and walked to the palace gates. "New lamps for old," he cried, "a fair trade." Princess Badroulbadour heard the commotion from her window. She looked around her chambers and saw an ugly, tarnished, dusty old lamp sitting on a shelf. She did not know what it was. She thought it was hideous. She told a servant to take it down and make the trade. Chapter 10. The Vanished Palace. Aladdin returned from hunting to find empty ground where his palace had been. No marble, no alabaster, no fountain, just dust, and his father-in-law staring down from the balcony with a look that said, "You had better fix this." The princess was gone. The lamp was gone. Everything he had built was gone. Aladdin walked into the desert until the city was a dot behind him. He sat on a rock and put his head in his hands. But then he remembered the ring. He had not used it since the cave. He rubbed it, and the lesser genie appeared. "Bring me to my wife," he said, and to the lamp. The world twisted. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in a courtyard he had never seen before. Same white marble, same alabaster. The magician had moved the entire palace to Morocco. Princess Badroulbadour was sitting in the courtyard, her face wet with tears. Chapter 11. The Trap for the Magician. They made a simple plan. The princess would welcome the magician to dinner. She would be warm, charming, grateful, and when he let his guard down, she would slip a sleeping powder into his wine. Not poison, just enough to knock him out for 12 hours. The magician arrived in his finest robes, full of triumph. He had the lamp, he had the palace, and now he thought he had the princess too. He drank the wine, he told her lies about his travels. And then his eyelids got heavy, his words slowed, his head hit the table. Aladdin stepped out from behind a curtain. He searched the magician's robes until his fingers found the lamp. Still warm, still alive. He held it up, rubbed it, and said, "Take us home." Chapter 12. The lamp on the shelf. The palace reappeared beside the sultan's before dawn. The princess was home. The city woke up to find the white marble building back where it belonged, as if it had never left. The magician was never seen again. The genie dropped him somewhere so deep in the desert that the sand had no name for it. Aladdin kept the lamp, but he used it less and less. He did not need it any more. He had a wife who loved him, a city full of people who respected him, and a mother who finally stopped asking when he was going to learn a trade. He put the lamp on a shelf in his study, ugly, tarnished, unremarkable, and every now and then, when something truly difficult came up, he would pick it up and give it a rub. Not because he was lazy, but because he had learned that power without wisdom is just another kind of trap. And Aladdin had been trapped once. He had no intention of being trapped again. The end.